Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story: I quit my job because the manager didn't take my note from the doctor. The second story: salesman treats me horribly, so I buy what I need through another salesperson in the same store, and he misses commissions. The third story: accounting lady refused to refund my expenses because $60 is more than $40. And the first story is return to work nightmare after car accident. Many years ago, I worked at a care home for individuals who needed help learning how to transition into living independently. I loved my job. I loved the people I cared for. It was tough though, as we were always short-handed. Staff had a high turnover rate because the pay wasn't great. We were consistently working double shifts and getting called in to work on our nights off. I was generally open to it as I had no kids at the time, and half my shift was literally hanging out with some of the coolest clients I ever met. The clients here really liked me and would look forward to when I was coming on shift. They would often come out to the driveway area to greet me when I got in. One day, the manager and several clients were in the driveway waiting for me to arrive. Just as my husband was about to pull into the driveway, residential road speed limit 25, we were hit from behind. The driver was going near 70 miles per hour and reached down to get his cell phone and hit us as we were pulling into the driveway. The way he hit us and with how fast he was going, our car did a full 360-degree spin in the driveway, and everything that was in our trunk went flying all over. The manager and the clients all saw what happened, and we were very lucky that day that they were further back in the driveway and didn't get hit. The manager called an ambulance for us. My husband's knee went into the dash and I was in complete shock. Felt like the world slowed down to frame-by-frame slow motion. The ambulance took us both to the hospital. Our car had to be towed away. At the hospital, we were cared for, and I was given an order to stay on bed rest for a few days and see my family physician as soon as possible. Ultimately, I was okay. Major whiplash and body aches, headaches, etc. from the shock and the force of the vehicles clashing, but nothing severe. My husband wasn't as lucky, but he was okay and just had to use crutches for a while his knee healed. After the few days of rest, I was still sore, but ready to return to work and just move forward. I arrived at work for my shift, and when I entered the house, my manager, the one that saw the crash and called the ambulance, was in the dining area sitting at the table with paperwork in front of her. She said, "Have a seat so we can go over this paperwork." I sat down and she asked for my doctor's note that she put me on bed rest for the few days. Well, I didn't have one. I hadn't considered it in my state of shock at the time to ask for one. She had seen firsthand the accident and saw me being taken away in an ambulance, so surely there wasn't a question of why I had to call in for those shifts. Wrong. Company policy: if you miss these shifts, you must show documentation from a doctor that you were instructed to take those days off work, or you cannot return to work. Okay, no problem. Sorry, I didn't realize it was needed. I'll run up to the hospital and get that right away. So I head up to the hospital and let them know I had been seen there a few days ago after a car wreck, and I needed a note that stated I was seen and what the doctor recommended that I take a few days of bed rest. So the receptionist, who is currently dealing with a triage of patients waiting to be seen, eye rolls and looks up the file. After reading it, she writes a note to my work stating that I was been a wreck and had been seen and was excused from work for 3 days. I promptly returned to work and hand her the note and let her know they pulled the file and got it taken care of. I expected she would let me fill out the paperwork and go on with my shift. Nope. She says the note has to be written by a doctor, not reception. Oh, okay, I say. I'll run back up and let them know what we need. I head back to the hospital. I let the reception know I was sorry to interrupt again, but that I needed a note that was written by a doctor. My boss can't accept it from reception. She says, well, I'm a nurse, but okay. I'll see if I can get this signed by a doctor. Quite a while later, she was able to get it signed by a doctor who would much rather be spending their time caring for people who ran over their foot with a lawnmower. I thank her and head back to work with the note, once again expecting to move on and get back to work. Nope. She says, so this is the doctor that you saw the night of the accident? Well, no, of course not. This is an ER, and most of the doctors at this hospital work for several different ERs around the valley, and they're rarely aliveness at the same hospital in a given week more than once or twice. This is a known fact in our area, but they pulled the file and confirmed the information that I was seen and excused from work and was asked to see my family physician as soon as I could. Sorry, but I must have a note from the doctor that saw you in the ER the night of the accident, not some random doctor. And because you can't seem to follow policy, you're now suspended for 3 days. I expect you to have a note from the doctor who saw you before you return after your suspension." I am beside myself. Why in God's name am I being forced to do this and suspended when she saw the wreck and called the ambulance herself? I am so confused at this point. I was an excellent employee, almost a college graduate with near perfect marks, availability beyond the scope of my own schedule weekly, last-minute double shifter for sake of the company and the clients without even a whine, suffering the effects of malicious compliance far beyond my comprehension. So what shall I do? I went back to that hospital on the off chance the doctor would be there. He was not there and he wouldn't be for weeks. I spent the next day tracking down this doctor, and in the end I prevailed. I got my note from the doctor that saw me in ER on the night of the wreck. I went into work early the next morning before the manager would arrive. I placed the note on her desk front and center, with my keys and another note stating my gratefulness for the opportunity I had to work with these amazing clients, but that unfortunately I could no longer afford the time to work there, as I was in a crunch with completing my education. Wished her well and good luck. I continued to visit the clients often, as a friend instead of a caregiver, and I'll never forget the awesome times we had hanging out BSing about the world, with no doctor's note required to do so. The malicious compliance dished out to me resulted in an ample amount of double shifts for the old manager though. Very strange behavior on the part of the manager, probably trying to push you out. You were in the workplace when the accident happened, probably afraid you were trying to turn it into a work compensation case. It sounds like they were afraid. They were injured on company property, let's push them away. I would also file a complaint against a manager who didn't provide specific instructions for what was needed in the first time. She was causing you problems even though she could have told you right away what was required of you. Even though she chose to quit her job, the OP chose to maliciously submit to a particular doctor's signature. The OP could have called to leave, or could have just not shown up after 3 days of suspension, and waited until the manager called to find out that he just couldn't find that doctor. I hope they enjoyed the karma of working double shifts. The second story is, but what can I afford? Okay, last month I was shopping around for a washing machine. For context, I'm in Nairobi, Kenya. Yes, it's a place. Yes, it's in Africa. Yes, we have electricity and running water. And I'm a bit of a late bloomer, so I look more like a 23-year-old, but I'm 32. Also, I'm a photographer and I dress for comfort, so I more often than not look homeless. Back to the story. I looked up what I wanted online and saw it was available at one of the major chains. But since I was free, I decided to go to the store in person. I went straight to the section with laundry equipment and one of the salesmen came to me. I was busy checking out the model I wanted, opening the door, reading the spec sheet and whatnot, so after he greeted me, we started talking about it. He asked if I'm interested in buying it, and I told him I'm considering it and asked for the price. It was just shy of $900. I knew from their website, but since I was in the store, I asked if they had in-store discounts or discounts for return customers, and inquired about their payment plans. I had bought a cooker there a few months before, so I knew all these things existed, and while I could afford to buy the washer outright, it would have left me a little cash strapped, and I wanted to spread the payment over 2 or 3 weeks. Also, I'm frugal, so I always look for discounts. At around this time, a well-dressed couple came into the same section, probably looking to buy something as well, and as soon as the salesman saw them, he walked to them and left me hanging. I called to him like, hey, I wasn't done, and he said, I'm serving a client now. I'll come back to you in a bit. In the meantime, look around for something you can afford. I was furious, but I'm a bit of a coward, so I walked away and went to the customer service station and started making my inquiry all over again. The attendant offered to call a sales agent for me. Same guy. Apparently he's the go-to guy for washing machines, but I declined. I told her I already knew what I wanted, and I just needed someone to help me with the paperwork and payment and I'll be on my way. She did just that. I paid the full amount out of spite, and as we were finishing up, the salesman came up to her claiming I was his client, which I denied, and the attendant listed herself as the sales agent. It turns out they earn a 10% commission from each sale, and the guy just missed out on a decent bonus. Salesmen earn around $300 plus commissions monthly. As I left, I turned to him and said, turns out I could afford it, with the biggest grin I could muster. Felt good. Best part? The couple he ditched me for left without buying anything. The best line I heard was from a former classmate who ended up becoming a car salesman. I treat everyone the same regardless of their appearance. I mean, it's not my job to judge. It's my job to take their money. I was once told to wait outside. This isn't a bus stop. The car dealership manager said as I waited to buy a Honda car for cash, Just because I was a 25-year-old woman in jeans and a t-shirt, he thought I was waiting inside for the bus because it was raining. Someone else heard what he said and helped me. They got a commission and also fired the manager. We came from a small town, so word spread, and years later people would see me in the supermarket and yell, "That's not a bus stop," and then fall down laughing. The last story is, I was forced to eat at a fancy restaurant for a month. Many years ago, I got put on a work assignment for months that required me to travel to New York City and stay every Monday to Friday. I was assisting a company manager with a project, and my hotel was near his regular office in the theater district. If you're not familiar, the theater district is heavily built for tourists. Restaurants are generally kind of fancy and expensive. There were really not any quick and cheap options for dining in that area. The company had a generous meal policy of up to $30 to $40 a meal for travel expenses. I did use that for a bit, but the food got to feeling too indulgent and kind of ridiculous, given it was an extended assignment. Also, I was working really long hours and did not want to go sit in restaurants. I just wanted to go watch TV and sleep in my room. So after the first week or so, I instead went to a grocery store on Monday night. I bought some basics for cereal, sandwiches, and snacks, and some frozen meals I could microwave for lunch in the office. It cost about $60. I then took a few cans of soda from my hotel fridge to make room for my weekly food purchase, and returned them before checking out at the end of the week. And that was it for food costs, with an occasional meal out here or there. I did the same thing for the next 4 weeks, submitted my expense report at the end of the month. You know where this is going. A lady from accounting called and refused to reimburse my expenses because $60 is more than $40, the max allowance for a meal purchase. I explained that it covered 5 days of food, but was told it doesn't matter. I then spent the next month trying all the food in the neighborhood. There really were not any cheap options. I went out to eat a few mornings, lunch whenever I found time, and dinner absolutely every day. I could have bought a few installments of groceries, but the once-a-week shopping convenience was part of why I'd wanted them. It had also seemed wasteful for me to go out for an expensive meal every night for long-term travel, but now I'd been told that was preferred by accounting to my grocery bills. The next month I got a call from my NYC manager, asking how I'd run through more budget every week of the month than the entire month before combined. I explained the grocery situation, and he thanked me and hung up. About 10 minutes later, that same lady from accounting called me to tell me they'd be paying my still not reimbursed grocery bill, and any going forward, as long as the daily amount averaged for the week was under the aggregate meal allowance. I happily returned to a more reasonable diet. At my old job, I had to fly to Hong Kong twice a year, so I would let my wife drop me off at the airport on Saturday morning, 30-minute drive. Accounting refused to refund the 2 extra trips my wife made. We're talking €2. I was told to use public transport instead, so I did. There was no early bus, so I had to book a hotel room at the airport and the bus fare. I always got the €200 reimbursed, slept at home, and let my wife bring me on Saturday morning anyway. Subscribe, hit the like button, and have a good day.